Welcome to Digital Factory Decoded, Digital Foundation episode by 𝘥𝘬𝘤𝘰𝘥𝘦.
Before starting the podcast, can you please share the objective of Digital Factory Decode?
Sure. Hello, everyone. So while we were meeting manufacturers, there were a lot of questions that keeps coming, which is all about what is digitalization, what kind of solutions are there, how these solutions benefits, how to go about an implementation, where to start. So these were the basic questions that we were getting, and then we thought this is something most of the mid-sized manufacturing companies would like to understand, and so bring the clarity in the manufacturers on the digitalization, what to do. We thought of starting this podcast series. We will try our best to cover as much as possible the concepts which are really needed from a digitization point of view.
What does a digital foundation actually mean in a manufacturing plant?
So digital foundation is the infrastructure that is needed for the digitalization projects. And what do we mean by the infrastructure is basically the hardwares or a software which are needed in a manufacturing plant that will enable the smooth flow of data and the analysis of the data. And then if we talk about the data, then it needs to be acquired at every place where it gets generated. So in a production environment, manufacturing machines are creating the data, workers who are operating, they are creating a data. There are different other kind of a data points that needs to be generated. So we need certain hardwares that will bring the data from the shop floor environment to the storage location. From storage, basically those data gets stored and then they needs to be analyzed, which is all about the computing infrastructure that will be needed. And then this also will need a visualization. So whatever infra that we need for the visualization part also gets included. So just to summarize, this is all about acquiring the data, analyzing, and then visualizing. So whatever the infra that we need is the digital foundation.
Why do most digital initiatives fail without proper data readiness?
So in a traditional plant, when the data gets collected, it is not always comprehensive or a truly digital. The data which gets captured is incomplete. Not every data point which is needed to analyze gets collected. So one biggest point is the incomplete data. Second thing, what happens is, since it is collected on a pen and paper, or maybe sometime the manufacturers have a data and then they upload in the ERP partial data in the evening. So this means there is a delay in the data capture which is happening. So it is not real time. So that's also creates challenges. And the third thing, the issue is on the reliability. So the data which gets collected on a day-to-day basis, how reliable and accurate that data is. So these are the few issues that are there from a data point of view. And this is something I think through a proper digital initiatives, these needs to be fixed. Because when we are saying that the manufacturers should adopt the AI solutions will work when we have the right kind and the amount of data is available to build the models. So if the data is not right, then the solutions also will not perform, and then we will not have an ROI. And which is why we sometimes hear that the AI solutions were deployed, but then the ROI didn't come. It didn't come only because the solutions got developed with an incomplete or a wrong data set, and that's where it really emphasizes that why it is important to have the accurate, reliable data available to us. So we all need to be AI ready before we even start thinking of adopting the AI solution, and to be AI ready, we need the right data with us.
What kind of data should factories capture?
As I said earlier, the data has to be comprehensive, and for a perfect analysis that really needs to be done to get the right kind of insights, we need a comprehensive data. So which means the data which is related to the production monitoring, that data has to be there. Then we also need data which is related to the operating parameters. So if there are machines who are operating, then at what speed it is operating, what temperature settings are there, similarly any other settings that the machine or an equipment gets run, then we need these setting of that, which is basically the process parameters. Then we need the all the data which is related to the quality. I think this all the manufacturers are doing the right thing of assessing the quality and then documenting it. But then many of the times these quality data is not available in a digital format. And then we also need the data from a maintenance point of view, like what is the maintenance activity that got done, how much time it took, what parts got changed, how much of time loss it created, how frequently it is happening, how many breakdowns which are happening, correct? So all of the data which is related to the asset maintenance, that has to be there. And then based on this data, then we could always calculate the efficiency and the productivity. So that's how this comprehensive data to be there. Now one more thing is we really don't need a summarized data. What we need also is the data at each of the machine or an equipment level. Then only we will be able to really optimize the operations at a individual machine level. So I think this is lot of data, but then it is important. Anything which is missing, then it doesn't bring the right level of an insights.
How can machines be connected without heavy investments?
Yeah, so I think this is extremely important. Digitalization is all about connectivity. We need all the machines and workers to be connected with each other. We need a setup where machines can talk to each other. One machine can communicate with the other machine, or machine can communicate with a human. So correct. So this level of a connectivity is really needed in a manufacturing plant. Now this comes at a cost, especially if there is a lot of hardware gets used for having a connectivity, and which is why I think we need to balance it out. There has to be a strategy where we get the complete data, but then it can come through the multiple channels. So there are essentially three ways that data can get acquired from the machines or from a connectivity point of view. First is we can have a direct machine integration, which means the integration with the PLC, so the data directly comes to the system from the machine on its own. Then the second thing is if machine connectivity cannot be established, or there are certain data points that we need which is not can be acquired from a PLC, then in that case we can use some sensors also, and these sensors can collect the specific points, like we can have a temperature sensor, we can have a vibration sensor. So some of the inputs that we need we can get from sensors. Third thing is if we are really finding it challenging from a cost point of view for doing a direct integration or a sensor integration, we can always start with getting the data through a worker. Now you will say that the workers are already giving the data, but the challenge is they are giving the data in a manual logbooks using pen and paper. I think this is something we don't need. We need the comprehensive and all the data points together digitally. So if there are certain data which cannot be taken directly from a machine or sensors, then we should have the third option, which is the data getting entered by the workers or operators in a shop floor through a tablets. And nowadays there are many simple to use applications which has come, which workers would be able to use it. So that definitely should be adopted. At the end, the message is 100% of the data should be in a digital. There should not be any manual data which is not there, right? So that's what we should take care. And by doing a balancing out of these three methodologies, I think the cost optimization can be done.
What are the common mistakes companies make while setting up machine connectivity?
So, from a machine connectivity point of view, first thing is if a company has say 50 machines, what they do is they prioritize certain machine and connectivity happens only in a selected machine. So, I think that is something should be avoided. While we can always start the pilot with a limited machine, but then 100% of the machine should get connected, then only the right kind of an insight will be there. Second challenge that comes up is even though machine connectivity happens through a PLC, but then the data which is getting collected becomes a limited data because not all the data points will come in from the PLC. So we also need to think over the data which is not coming from PLC, how do we acquire, and for that the other two channels can be leveraged. So and the third thing again that is most important is which I have seen is many manufacturers, even though they are collecting the data from the machines, they have all the information which is available, but there is no proper analysis basically which gets done. So the long-term analysis based on the trends, looking at the data from say 1 month to 6 months of a period, and then see what are the issues, what went right, what is going okay, correct? So doing a proper analysis is critical, and that is not happening. And I think so this is something needs to be taken care. Manufacturers putting so much money in doing the machine integration, getting the data, we need to be using that data to drive cost optimization in a manufacturing plants.
Should manufacturers go for cloud or on-premise, and how to decide?
So I think this is an extremely critical question, which I'm surprised that it keeps coming, and since many years manufacturers are puzzled with this, while there is some level of a clarity which has started coming now about the cloud. So cloud is absolutely secure, and we should be using cloud because the kind of an security mechanism and the cost that we get from a cloud is something which will become difficult if we try to do on-prem. In the on-prem, which means that we will have to maintain the server, which we will have to update it, we will have to provide all the right level of a cooling. So there are many maintenance activities that needs to be done, which will need IT person to be there. So overall, for a manufacturer, especially the mid-size manufacturer, having an extra cost of maintaining a server, having an IT person's in-house will be difficult. So which is why especially for the small and medium enterprises, I think the cloud is the right strategy. The on-prem can be there for a limited data. Say for example, certain manufacturers have their own proprietary recipes. Maybe for that, if they prefer, they can store locally. But for all the regular production data, which the use of that production data is primarily from a cost optimization point of view or the operational excellence, and since that data is a lot of data, as I said earlier, there from a comprehensive point of view, we need the production data, quality data, maintenance, and operation data. So it really becomes a lot of data, and so that's where I think the cloud will work out best. In fact, I mean, if we really want to relate it with our examples in our personal life, if we have jewelry in our home, then do we prefer to keep it at home or do we prefer to keep it in the lockers, correct? So because we feel the security will be better in the banks, in the lockers, and it's exactly the same thing. So the kind of a safeguard mechanism the cloud vendors are providing, I think they are much better than what we can maintain in our own manufacturing plants. We will not be able to build in that level of a security which is really needed to safeguard our data. So I think cloud is a good option, and it is the cheaper option.
How much infrastructure is good enough to start digitalization?
So from an infrastructure point of view, if we are starting, then as I said earlier, it has to be the data acquisition. storage and the analysis. So whatever the setup that we need basically to acquire our data from a shop floor environments, process it, and then get the insights and view those insights through the dashboards. That level of a infra or a connectivity, I think will be good enough. And to reduce the cost, maybe we can start with the tablets kind of an applications first, where manufacturers are giving the data through a tablets, and slowly we can start integrating the machines through the use of an IoT. So if you are really asking and then want to know what is the minimum or a basic level of an infrastructure, then try it out with the just using the software applications through the tablets. Start getting into the habit of collecting the data, analyzing the data, and seeing what difference does the digital data brings to the overall cost benefit, and improving the KPIs and the efficiencies. So I think once we have that level of a confidence and understanding of the data, then we can start bringing the automation in the data collection, which is when we can move towards the IoT or sensors or the direct machine integrations.
What our listeners can expect in the future podcast?
Yeah, so today we did focus more from an foundations, which is basically setting up the infrastructures. I think when it comes to the usage of the applications, there are many more applications which are there at each of the function or a department level, which also I think we need to bring clarity for the manufacturer. So maybe in the next episode we will try to cover what are the different kind of an applications which are there, which manufacturers can take benefits about. And then we will also, in our future episode, we will be talking about on what is the way or an approach for digitalization. How should we go about it? Where to start? How to assess the ROI? So there are many more questions, I think, which we need to clarify. So we will do that. But in addition, I would also encourage our listeners to also share their questions with us. We will bring the answers of those in our future episodes also. But stay tuned. There's a lot more learning to come.